This happened to me about 6 months ago during a week off from work. I'd been stuck at home all day due to heavy rain and a thunderstorm. It was one of those days when the sky wouldn't stop crying, and when it finally did, it was past afternoon. I hadn't eaten much and started craving something salty. Specifically, I wanted a can of Pringles and maybe a pack of smokes. I live alone, and that too in a quiet neighborhood, so I decided to simply drive to the closest gas station, about 5 minutes away, and quickly grab what I needed. The gas station was almost empty. The streets were deserted, and the street lights were flickering from the rain. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a man slumped over one of the garbage cans close to the building's side. I first assumed he was simply searching for recyclables, but then I noticed he was eating out of the trash can. He looked filthy. His hair was matted down to his face, and torn layers of drenched clothes were sticking to his skin. He didn't seem drunk or high, just off. His movements were strange, sometimes too calm and other times too predatory. He noticed me as I walked past him, but didn't say anything. I walked in, grabbed my can of Pringles and a pack of smokes. It probably took a minute to pay. The cashier didn't acknowledge me. He just fixed his gaze on his phone screen. Once I was done, I came out holding the Pringles in one hand and the smokes in the other. The homeless guy stood exactly where I last saw him. "Hey, you got any money?" he asked. Although he spoke in a low voice, I felt uneasy about the forced politeness in his tone. I said, "Sorry, I got nothing," and hurried around him. I got in my car and turned on the engine. I was about to drive away when a loud thud appeared on the hood. The crazy man jumped on my car. He began yelling and pounding his fists on the windshield and screamed something I couldn't understand. Hoping he would get off, I honked the horn. But he casually rolled off and stood in front of my car as though he was planning to create some sort of act. I looked back at the cashier inside the store, hoping for some help, but he had headphones on and was facing his back at me. Suddenly, the homeless guy did something that I didn't see coming. He fell backward and began laughing hysterically. His coarse, high-pitched laughter echoed into the night. I was so angry and disgusted by his theatrics that something in me just snapped. I don't know what came over me. Perhaps it was a surge of panic, guilt, or sheer anger that compelled me to accelerate. There was a sickening crunch followed by a scream. I didn't stop to check on him. I just drove straight home, trembling the whole time. I couldn't believe what I had done. I kept telling myself he'd just gotten a little bruised. Maybe I didn't hit him as hard as it felt. Still, I knew deep down I had screwed up. I struggled to fall asleep that night. The storm had resumed, louder than it had before. I woke up at 2 a.m. to find the house whistling with wind. I became worried that I might have left the living room window open. I got down and the window was open. I reached to close it and found wet, bloody footprints from the window leading to my kitchen. An unknown fear crawled under my skin. Slowly, I turned and followed the prints. On the top of the kitchen counter, I saw that same homeless man. His skull was cracked and tilted in one direction. His face had the sickest smile, with one eye appearing to be pushed somewhat forward. From his scalp, blood spilled onto the floor. He cast a silent glance at me, and everything went dark. I woke up on the floor the next morning. I jumped to check the bloody footprints, but to my shock, there wasn't a single spot of blood in my house. There was no sign anyone had come in. I convinced myself it was a nightmare. Maybe the stress had gotten to me, or my mind had tried to cope with what I'd done to the guy. 3 days later, I was having coffee when the local news played in the background. Less than 2 miles from the gas station, cops have found a man's body near a ditch off the highway. The victim had a massive skull fracture and had apparently tried to walk with the injury before collapsing and dying. They said he was likely hit by a vehicle. There were no witnesses, and the security cameras at the nearest gas station had been out for weeks due to water damage. They showed a blurred-out photo of the victim, and even with the censorship, I recognized the filthy jacket, the patchy beard, and the wild eyes. It was him. No one had come knocking on my door. There were no cops, no questions. But I never went back to that gas station again, and I never left my windows open during a storm. Sometimes, during thunderstorms, I think I hear something in the kitchen. Not footsteps exactly, but a soft, wet, dragging sound. On a rainy Thursday night, I was working my usual shift at Circle K. This place was just off the highway, with an empty road on one side and woods on the other. Most nights around this time, I barely see any customers, just the occasional trucker or someone grabbing a drink on their drive home. I was standing behind the counter, restocking some gum packs, when the front door slammed open. As I turned back, I noticed a girl standing barefoot, completely drenched from head to toe. She had a small cut on her forehead and hair uprooted in places on her head. She appeared to be around 16 or 17 years old and was panting continuously, as if she were having difficulty breathing.
Hey, you alright?
At first, she didn't respond. She simply stood there, trembling, staring at me. I walked closer and asked again in a softer tone.
Please, help me. I don't want to go back.
Her words sounded like riddles. I gave her a towel and asked,
Go back where? Did someone hurt you? Just call the cops, now!
I called 911. Everything about her gave a strong indication that something awful had happened to her. I kept looking at the girl while I was on the phone with the 911 operator. I don't know why, but her face seemed familiar.
The cops are on their way.
I tried talking to her while we waited. She didn't answer when I asked her name. She finally responded when I asked her how she got into the woods.
It was him. My master. But I'm scared of him now.
I felt sick to my stomach when I heard the word master.
What? Who's master?
Her eyes widened if she weren't fully present when she gazed at me.
He keeps me at the cabin in the woods. Sometimes he feeds me with his mouth. He says I'm here to serve him.
My heart was racing as I sat there listening. She continued explaining how he punished her when she made a mistake. She said he plucks out her nails as offerings. It's been 2 weeks and I only have one nail left. She lifted her hand and I jumped, seeing the tip of her fingers. That's when it hit me. I'd seen her photo on Facebook on a missing person post. She was the girl who vanished about 2 weeks ago from a town 30 miles away. Just as I was about to ask if her name was what I remembered from the post, a van pulled into the lot. The headlights were off. It rolled up slowly, stopping right in front of the store. Then, the driver honked, just once. The girl's face went pale. Her lips trembled as she whispered,
Master's here.
Without thinking, I bolted to the front and locked the doors. The driver of the van stepped out. He was alarmingly tall and wore this dark raincoat. He had an expressionless face with blue eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. He approached the glass, gazed at the girl, and then looked at me. "Let her out! She's mine! You have no idea what you're doing!" I told him the cops were on the way, but that only made him angrier. He started slamming his fists on the glass. I genuinely believed he was going to break it. The girl sobbed as she curled up in the corner. I tried my best to remain composed as I stood between her and the door. This continued for a minute, and I was sure I'd fight him till the last drop if he got in. Just then, sirens from a cop car echoed from a distance. The man ran back to the van and sped off into the darkness. The cops came in, guns drawn, checking every corner of the store. Once they were sure it was safe, I told them everything. The girl confirmed her story and even pointed out a small symbol she said he made her carve into a tree near where she escaped. The cops radioed it in and said they'd search the area immediately. Within an hour, they had found the makeshift shack deep in the woods, along with evidence confirming she had been kept there. By the next morning, they had arrested the man. He had a long record of disturbing behavior that had somehow flown under the radar for years. The girl's parents came to see me at the store 2 days later. They cried so hard they could barely speak. Her mom hugged me and thanked me over and over. The cops said if she hadn't run into the Circle K, or if I haven't stopped the man, things could have ended very differently. It's been months now, and I still think about that night. I work the day shift now. I can't bring myself to be in that store alone after dark anymore. Not after hearing what that girl had been through, and not after seeing that look in the man's eyes, like he really believed she belonged to him. Some nights, I still see his face in the window, even though I know he's locked up. Some images just don't go away.
I lived with my grandmother for a large part of my life. Across the street from her house lived a woman, her neighbor, who always looked at us in a strange way. She hated our family, and I still don't know why. She didn't hide it either. You could see it in her eyes, in the way she glared, like we'd done something unforgivable. But then, in 2015, when I was 8 years old, something unexpected happened. That same woman called me over to her front yard. She was smiling. It was the first time she'd ever acted friendly. I was an innocent, naive child, so I crossed the street without hesitation. She was holding a doll, a big one, around 3 feet tall. It had blonde, shoulder-length hair with bangs and looked just like one of those old dolls from the 80s or 90s. She gave it to me, and I accepted it. Why wouldn't I? I brought the doll home and showed it to my family. They thought it was odd that she'd suddenly act nice, but no one really questioned it. Days passed, and for no clear reason, I started to feel afraid of that doll. I didn't want to be near it. I couldn't look it in the face. My mom and aunt thought it was funny. They'd play little pranks like putting the doll next to my bed holding a fork while I was asleep. It wasn't meant to scare me. They always cared about me. But to me, it wasn't funny. I was terrified. And then, strange things started happening. My grandmother had already been struggling with depression after losing a close relative. But after the doll came into our house, her condition rapidly worsened. She began having hallucinations. She stopped recognizing people, even me, even my mother and aunt. The only person she recognized was my uncle. She would talk about seeing the house on fire. She told us she saw me and my cousins lying dead in the kitchen. She walked aimlessly through the house, never speaking clearly. There was always a worried, almost haunted look in her eyes. She wasn't herself anymore. It was like something had taken over. My family started to believe something spiritual was happening. We brought in a pastor to bless the house. We even called a medium from Umbanda, an Afro-Brazilian religion, to try and expel whatever was there. During one of these sessions, my mom, who has always been spiritually sensitive, said she felt a hand around her neck, trying to choke her. Eventually, my grandmother had to be admitted into a psychiatric hospital. Even there, the hallucinations continued. She believed the doctors were trying to kill her. She begged not to be left alone. And that doll, the one that the neighbor gave me, my uncle took it and threw it away somewhere along the road. To this day, I don't know what was inside that doll, and I don't know if our neighbor cursed it, but it's the only explanation that makes sense. My grandmother is okay now. She's stable, but she has to take a lot of medication to stay that way. We don't talk much about it anymore, but it's something none of us will ever forget. And that woman, that neighbor who gave us those dirty looks, she still lives across from my grandmother's house, and she still looks at us with hate. And once, she even tried to run me over with her car. I just wish I knew why. Why did she do this to us?